Chapter 1. The Castle That Shouldn't Be Found. Once, in a faraway village surrounded by thick woods and crooked trees, lived three sisters. Ava, Lena, and the youngest, Myra. Their parents had passed away suddenly in a mysterious fire, leaving them orphaned and without a home. With no money and nowhere to go, the sisters wandered from town to town, sleeping in barns, empty huts, and even graveyards. One rainy evening, as they were walking along a narrow forest path, they saw something through the mist, a giant, old castle rising behind the fog. Its windows were shattered, the walls covered in dark green moss. No birds sang near it. It looked completely abandoned. "This place looks strange," Mira whispered, her eyes wide. "Exactly," said Ava. "That means no one will bother us. We'll stay the night." As soon as they entered, the heavy iron doors creaked loudly, and a swarm of bats flew out, brushing past their faces. The air inside was thick, cold, and smelled like damp stone and something else, something rotten. The castle was filled with antique furniture, dusty portraits, and tall mirrors with cracked glass. The halls echoed their footsteps too loudly, as if the walls were listening. "We'll look for food in town," Ava said, turning to Myra. "Yes," Lena added. "You stay here, Mira. Don't touch anything." Myra, frightened but obedient, nodded. She wandered into a side room and sat near the fireplace. It was cold, but she found a torn blanket and wrapped herself in it. Outside, thunder cracked. Inside, she could hear whispers. At first, she thought it was the wind, but then she realized the whispers were coming from behind the walls. Chapter 2. The Locked Room. The whisper grew louder, more distinct. "Mira, Mira." She stood up suddenly, knocking over an old candlestick. The sound of it hitting the floor echoed like thunder in the empty hall. She pressed her ear against the wall. The whispering continued with many voices, layered over one another, impossible to understand but clearly speaking. And they were coming from behind the walls. Outside, her sisters, Lena, the eldest and cautious, and Arya, bold and reckless, walked through the nearby village, unaware of what Myra had heard. The villagers avoided eye contact, muttering prayers under their breath as the sisters passed. "Did you see their faces?" Lena whispered. "They looked at us like we were already dead," Arya replied. They returned after sunset, carrying a stale loaf of bread and a jug of water. Inside the castle, the air felt colder than before. As they called out for Myra, the silence answered back. "Mira," Lena's voice trembled. They found her in the corner, eyes wide open, staring at the wall. Her voice was low, almost a whisper. There, in the walls, watching. Lena scoffed, trying to dismiss the fear, but even she could feel it now, something unnatural about the place. The mirrors vibrated faintly, and the air felt like it was breathing. Later that night, Arya explored deeper into the castle. She discovered a spiral staircase that led to a hallway lined with locked doors. Most were sealed tight, but one stood slightly ajar. She pushed it open. The room inside was filled with dusty children's toys, rotting books, and a small bed that looked untouched for years. But what froze her heart was the writing scratched into the wall, over and over again. "Still here, still here." still here. Then the door slammed shut behind her. Chapter 3. The Room That Remembers. Arya screamed. The sound echoed off the stone walls and was quickly swallowed by the castle's endless silence. She grabbed the doorknob and twisted, pushed, slammed nothing. The door wouldn't budge. The air grew heavier, colder. Her breath fogged in the dark. She turned back to the room. The toys on the shelves, once frozen in time, had shifted. A wooden horse now lay in the center of the room. A porcelain doll with cracked eyes was no longer facing the wall. Its glassy stare met hers. On the bed was a thin layer of dust, except for the spot where someone had been lying. Then came the whispering again. Not from the walls this time, but from the ceiling. Arya looked up. Above her, on the high wooden rafters, symbols had been burned into the beams. Symbols that pulsed faintly with a red light, as if still smoldering. Her chest tightened with fear. She backed away slowly, nearly tripping over a stuffed bear that hadn't been there before. "Myra, Lena," she shouted, pounding the door again. "Open the door." At that moment, on the other side of the castle, Myra jerked upright in the drawing room. Her eyes went wide. "She's trapped," she whispered. Lena looked at her, unsettled. "How do you know?" I heard her, like she was inside my head." Lena grabbed an old lantern, its glass stained and smoky, and they ran down the halls, following Mira's instinct. The castle seemed bigger than before, halls twisted. Doors they had passed earlier were now gone, and new ones had appeared. Was this hallway here before? Lena asked. "No," Myra said quietly, "but it wants us to go this way." Lena stopped in her tracks. "Myra, what are you talking about?" Myra didn't answer. They reached the staircase Arya had taken. The air was colder now, not the kind of cold that numbs the skin, but the kind that bites into your bones. The lantern flickered violently. When they finally found the door, Myra placed her hand on the handle and it opened. Arya tumbled out, shivering, her face pale and streaked with tears. "There was something in there," she gasped. "It was watching me. It knows our names." Lena helped her to her feet. "We're leaving now." But when they returned to the main entrance, the doors wouldn't open. The metal handles had twisted into snarling faces. The keyhole was gone. They were trapped. And behind them, deep in the castle, something creaked like footsteps that didn't belong to anyone alive. Chapter 4. The Eyes in the Mirror. The girls stared at the sealed front doors. Cold iron twisted into snarling faces, mouths open in silent screams. No matter how hard they pulled or pushed, the doors would not move. "We're not alone here," Arya whispered. "Not just that," Myra said slowly. "We were never meant to leave." They decided to return to the room with the fireplace, the only place that still felt remotely safe. As they moved down the long, dark corridors, the candlelight flickered unnaturally, almost as if it were responding to something unseen. The air felt heavier with each step, and the silence was thick with unspoken dread. Lena tried to be the strong one, but her hands trembled as she shut the door behind them. "We'll stay here tonight," she said. "In the morning, we'll search for another way out." Arya nodded, but kept glancing over her shoulder. Myra sat quietly in the corner, her arms wrapped around her knees. The whispers had returned. She could hear them even now, low, murmuring voices just behind her ears. But it wasn't just sound anymore. Now she could understand them. "Do you hear that?" Mira asked. her voice oddly calm. Lena frowned. What? They're saying my name again. And something else. Welcome back. The others stared at her, alarmed. Arya moved closer. Myra, are you okay? But Myra didn't respond. Her eyes had drifted to the tall mirror across the room. Its surface was cracked, blackened with age, but something about it pulled at her. She stood up and walked toward it, slowly, like sleepwalking. Her reflection was distorted, at first, but then the surface rippled. Her image blinked back at her, but the eyes weren't hers. They were too wide, too dark, and they smiled before she did. Mayra, Arya asked again, standing beside her. Then the mirror went completely black. Arya gasped. Did you see that? I saw her, Myra said softly. The girl in the mirror. She lives here. Lena took Myra's arm and pulled her away. We're not doing this. This is just fear, exhaustion, and this creepy place playing with our heads. But even as she said the words, the mirror cracked again by itself. That night, the sisters huddled close to the cold hearth. Sleep came slowly, and when it did, it brought dreams of fire, screams, and a castle that shifted its shape. In Myra's dream, she stood in the main hall, but it was different, cleaner, lit by candles that floated in the air. Laughter echoed through the halls. She was wearing a white dress and holding hands with someone whose face she couldn't see. And then the laughter turned to screams. The candles went out. Blood ran down the walls. She turned and saw herself standing behind her, dressed in black, eyes glowing red. When she woke up, she was standing in front of the mirror again, and the eyes in the glass were still watching her.